the Sterling Heights Public Library. My name is Brent, and today we're talking about mashed potatoes. Come on down, we got a couple things to cover before we get started here. Okay, so taters is taters, right? Not exactly. Okay, so let's go over the different types of potatoes a little bit and give you a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be doing today. So today we are going to be working with these little round redskins. These are really good for boiling. They mash really well. They roast pretty well. They're not probably going to be your first choice for a baked potato. That is what this little guy is for. This is a russet potato. You'll notice that it is more of an oblong shape. This one here has a pretty light skin on it, but a lot of times they're going to have a rougher, heavier skin on them. And this here is going to be great for frying, for roasting, and for baking. What's the difference? Well, the amount of starch in them. So these things here have a lower starch content. If you're making mashed potatoes, these are going to come out more of a creamy texture to them. Can you mash these? Yes, you can. They're going to typically come out with a drier, a little bit fluffier texture. We're going for creamy today, so I'll show you the difference inside of these as well. Now, the color of the potatoes is pretty much all in the skin. So these here are around white. Not really a huge difference between using these and these. The big difference you're going to see here is that, see the rougher skin on these? These have been let run a little bit longer. These weren't harvested as new potatoes. A lot of times your redskins, your yellow potatoes, a lot of times if you find a round white with a really thin, smooth skin on them, you can actually leave the skins right on these. You probably don't want to leave the skin on these. And also, how you store these makes a little bit of a difference. I don't know if you can see that on the camera here or not, but these here have had a little bit of light get to them. They're starting to turn a little green. You get anything that's got a rough skin like this here, make sure you take it off, especially if there's any green spots. Peel off any green, because green means that it's got a light to it. That potato is going to try and to start to grow, and that green stuff has a tendency to add a really bitter flavor. So let me cut a couple of these open here real quick, and I'll show you, see if we can see a little bit of a difference in these. So, okay, so that is what the inside of this looks like, as opposed to the inside of the russet. You probably can't see a real difference on camera there, but these do have definitely a grainier texture to them than these do. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to leave the skins on these. I am going to just cut these into some smaller pieces a little bit here. Set this off to the side for a moment here. And the little guys here, we can just leave that whole. I do want to get this little funny spot out of here. So if you're leaving the skins on them, make sure they're nice and clean. You don't actually have to wash them before you cut them, because I'll show you a quick and easy way to get a good wash on potatoes if they're not real dirty. These here, we would definitely want to peel. We would definitely want to rinse thoroughly. Okay, so the main reason for cutting these up is just to get them down to a smaller size, a little bit more even pieces. They'll cook a little bit quicker this way and a little bit more evenly. So I've got a saucepan here. This is about a 2-quart saucepan. I got about 1.5 pounds of potatoes here. I'm going to go ahead and throw these in. I'm going to cover them with water over at the sink. Give them a good stir. And I got another little bit of yuck on there. And drain them thoroughly to get any dirt off of them. Now I've went ahead and put these in a pan. I got them covered over with some cold water, and I've actually agitated these good and given them a good rinse in the sink on 2 changes of water, just to get any dirt off of them. You can clean them beforehand anyway. These were pretty clean to begin with, so shouldn't have any problems with dirt. Didn't have any eyes or any weird spots on them that we didn't cut out, so these should be pretty straightforward. Okay, so when you're cooking potatoes, when you're boiling potatoes, make sure you add some salt to the water. So we're going to add about a teaspoon of salt to that water. We don't want to go crazy on them. We will add some more when we're actually ready to season these things. I'm going to go ahead and get these on the stove here in a minute, but in the meantime, I'm going to go over the other ingredients we're using today. Very few ingredients on this. We got some butter. We're going to need that. Got some milk or cream. Either of these work. Obviously, cream is going to give you a richer, creamier product. Milk works just fine. I've got this little measuring cup here. I'm using glass because one of the keys to this is warming up your milk before you add it. It actually helps with the texture. A couple of tools. I got a potato masher. I got just a rubber spatula. This comes in really handy. And the old handy dandy hand mixer. This is not absolutely necessary, but it's going to help with producing a little bit finer texture on the finished product. So let me get these things on the stove and we'll get going. So I got the potatoes on about a medium heat right now. We're going to bring these up to a boil slowly. You don't want to put the cover on these right away. If you've ever put the cover on a batch of boiled potatoes and walked away, if it starts boiling up, it's probably going to boil over and boil all over your stove. So we're going to keep these things going here, just get them started. When they do come up to a boil, we're going to reduce the heat and we're going to just keep an eye on them. Not necessarily super closely, but we don't want them boiling all over the stove. You can see these are just starting to come up to a simmer. One thing you're going to find when you're boiling potatoes is that just about the time they come up to a simmer or a boil, you start to develop a little of this foam on the top. It doesn't hurt anything. Some people do prefer to skim it off. It's probably a little early to skim this right now, but it's not really a crisis. It's pretty much going to go away when you drain the potatoes anyway. So I just wanted you to be able to see that. So now that these are coming up, we're going to let these go for probably about 15 minutes or so. We want to make sure that they're tender when we poke them with a fork. Okay, so these potatoes have been going for a little while now, and they are just about fork tender. You see how the fork slides in nice and easy like that? They start to crack a little bit. You want them nice and soft. So these are ready to drain. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to take it back over to the other side here, and we'll show you how to finish them up. So we drained our potatoes. They're still nice and hot. We definitely want to work with them while they're still hot. I've got the masher here, and I'm just going to go ahead and give those a nice squish. And depending on how rustic you like these, you can just work with this. But once they're starting to come in a little bit, you can go ahead and a couple of little bits of potato there that got away from me. Okay, so I'm going to add a nice dollop of butter. Just kind of mash that in lightly. I need a little bit more salt. Test those again in a moment. And while I was setting those potatoes to drain, took some milk, got about just a little bit over half a cup here for this amount that I warmed up in the microwave. You definitely want to keep this warm. Now, one of the things about doing the potatoes as we did with the skins on them, when you start mashing them this way, a lot of the skins actually come off. So if you want to add those back in, you can scrape them off of there. But if you want just a few of them in there, this is a great way to get some of them out. Now, if you want to make these a little bit fluffier, a little smoother, this is where your hand mixer comes in. And just give those a little bit of a run here. If you need to add a little bit more milk, you can. Looks like I'm probably going to want to. Okay, so I did wind up needing a little bit more milk. Went ahead and, again, made sure I warmed that up. Don't overheat this because you don't want it boiling all over the place inside your microwave. That makes a heck of a mess. And I'm just going to go ahead and give these a little bit longer. Oh yeah. So those are coming together nicely. You don't want to overestimate your milk right off the bat. You can always add a little bit more, but if you put too much in too early, you wind up with a mess. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and give those a taste. Our salt balance on these is just right. So I'm not going to add any more salt. Basically at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and scrape them down off the sides. You can transfer them to a bowl if you want to, but these things are nice and hot. And if you put that lid on at this point, they're going to stay nice and hot for a good 20 minutes. Simple mashed potatoes. It's more complicated than you might think, but still pretty easy.